Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. I am so excited right now. We have an actress here who is part of possibly right now, the best show on Broadway, the absolute best show on Broadway, possibly the best show in quite some time. It's an incredible show, an incredible performance. She's right here. Give her a big round of applause. Please welcome Laura Donnelly. Let's hear it. Hi. Hey there.
How you doing?
I absolutely mean that. It is an incredible show.
Thank you.
A feat of so many different kinds.
Thank you very
Performance, children, set, design,
Animals.
direction, and then script. You have been doing the show for the better part of 2 years now.
Yeah.
First in London, where I think you won some awards, right? Isn't that true?
Yeah,
Isn't that true? You
yeah,
won some
we got a
awards?
few, yeah.
And now on Broadway. Take me back to the beginning. Just backstage, you told me 8 weeks of rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
What did that rehearsal entail? What was workshopping this play like? Because as a viewer watching it, you can't imagine that it wasn't already fully formed when it was handed to you.
Yeah, it was fairly fully formed. We had spent a few months previous to even beginning rehearsals. The majority of the cast were in place in the months leading up to rehearsals, and so we had already done some read-throughs, round tables, and Jez Butterworth, the writer, had kind of continued to develop it. And by the time we went into rehearsals, there was definitely a full 3.5-hour play there ready to go. But through the course of those 8 weeks, it just spent a lot of time him rewriting it according to how he could feel it working, according to how the rhythms were working. And so there wasn't really... It wasn't a normal rehearsal process where we would all sit around a table and discuss character and discuss, what was going on in scenes. There was none of that. Sam Mendes, our director, just had to say on the first day, I can't direct this like a normal play. We just have to get this on its feet, see if it works, and just, so it was 8 weeks of doing that, really. And when kids and geese and everything else come into it, then,
That's one of the fun parts of the show, too, is you're sitting there and you're going, look at all these kids. Wait, the live animals are in this show, too? And it's like not The Lion King. It's a classic drama. You say get it on its feet. Did it feel right away like it worked? Or did it feel like something that you guys all had to figure out, or was like, no, this is going to work. This is great.
It was that. It made complete sense. It was, I think it's a lot to do with how Jez imagines it whenever he's writing. He has a very real, alive sense of how, for example, the first act is set in the kitchen in the Carney household, and that's so alive for him in his brain. I think that by the time we all get up and do it, it makes sense. It has all been thought out thoroughly. So,
and know this as an actor that it's so, as a viewer, you're watching it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Everything makes sense. Mm-hmm. As an actor, you get scripts all the time. You get plays all the time that things don't make sense, and everybody has to sit down and figure out the scene.
Yeah.
And then somebody has to go rewrite it. It's actually a rarity that someone is such a good writer that you get things that make sense from front to back.
Completely. That is, like you say, that's just, it demonstrates how brilliant the writing is, because you don't get that very often at all.
And it's not to sort of put down any other kind of writer than Jez Butterworth, but it is really like a genius feat to be able to write a very clear, beautiful scene.
I completely agree.
Yeah. As an actress, did you find when you got this, you're like, I can't believe that this is so obvious?
Yeah, definitely. I had been lucky enough to be part of the process from the beginning of the writing. So I had read a first act when there were no other acts, and then I'd read the first 2 acts when there wasn't a third act. And so You've
been friends with Jez for some time?
We have been friends for 6 years, yes. And we did a play previously together, The River. So because this play was actually based in part on my family story. So he found out about that, decided he was going to write a play about it. And so my kind of access to it was from the beginning. And so I got to see the development of that and the development of the characters and how complete it was from the absolute beginning, even in a first act when he didn't have act 2 and 3 in place, how rich and layered just that first act was, how well developed the characters already were, how complete it already seemed, was just incredible to me, and I just knew that I absolutely had to do it at all costs.
Is that ever daunting as an actress, that everything is so well put together already and the characters are already fleshed out? Does it feel like there's less work for you to do and that can be kind of a letdown, or does it feel like there's even more work that you get to dive into?
It felt like there was less work for me to do, but that didn't feel like a letdown. It did feel, it was disconcerting, because I'm used to going into a rehearsal room and starting from scratch on something that I don't have that much familiarity with. And
what does this line mean? Where are they coming from?
absolutely, and having to do a lot of digging and a lot of background work. And it was the first time I came in and I thought, I already know exactly who this person is, and I know her world, and I know everything she means when she says every line. And it's partly to do with, like I said, the access that I had to it from the beginning, but it's just also to do with the quality of his writing, in that it just seemed to leap off the page to me in such an obvious way. There just weren't that many questions I had to ask. It spoke to me exactly how I thought it should be done. Just seemed to be really clear.
Now, you said it's partially based off of your family history.
Yeah.
Can I ask what part?
The death of the brother, who is then discovered 10 years later. My mother's brother was killed by the IRA in Northern Ireland in 1981 and was discovered 3 years later in a bog, and that was the beginning of...
So that was just the launching point for his play. Was there ever a moment where you were reading these acts as they were coming in, as he was writing them, and you were thinking, well, what if you added a little more of my family in here? Or maybe this isn't exactly like my family. What are you writing?
No, I definitely didn't, because I think that it would be a worse play if he were trying to write about someone else's experience. That was just a launching point for that. But the rest of the play, the characters in it, the themes of it are based on his own experiences and what it is he wants to say about his experience in the world. And that's all that I think a great writer can do. And had he tried to write from somebody else's point of view or be in someone else's shoes, it wouldn't be as brilliant, because it wouldn't be personal to him.
Do you find that there is any sort of resonance with the play? I mean, I know it takes place in the late 70s, early 80s, right?
In 1981.
1981, like just what happened to you? Do you think there's any sort of resonance in terms of the political factions right now, in terms of the way that we are very disparate and divided, and certain factions are kind of taking over in ways that are not necessary, that are sort of exploitative in some
Absolutely. Respects? I mean, I think depressingly that these kind of politics are cyclical. I think that you give it enough time and they
rear their ugly head.
They do again, and there's so much to be learnt from plays like this, from looking at history, from looking at specifically the situation in Northern Ireland, and how likes of terrorism not only affected but then was dealt with, how that was handled within politics and within communities. There's a lot to be learned from history if we take...
Or the way that sort of true martyrdom and true activism was exploited for kind of like local gangs and local gain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are young men in the play who are around 16, 17 years old, and there's a long scene devoted to looking into the mentality that of them at that point. It's an amazing scene.
Every scene, like if you bring up another scene, I'll go, such a beautiful scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that one is as well.
It's one of my favorites, and it's because it looks all around it and within each of their different viewpoints. And one boy says one thing, and you think, absolutely, I'm on his side, and then the other presents a different truth, and you're completely on his side. And it does demonstrate how there is no right and wrong in these situations when people are suffering and they are oppressed, and there are all of these social issues to do with being specifically in this situation in Northern Ireland, it's to do with young men who are being attacked and abused by an occupying army in their country, and how that does breed the kind of mentality that leads towards terrorism, because they're unhappy.
What I love about that scene is that you just said each of them represent a different viewpoint, but what's so wonderful about that scene is that most writers would fail miserably at presenting a scene where a character is supposed to represent a different viewpoint and have like a very specific idea in order to sort of contradict or not sort of rely too heavily on one ideology.
Yeah.
whereas you are so wrapped up in the turmoil of the family at that point in the show that you are lost and you don't actually start thinking about each character as a simple idea.
Absolutely.
They still have a three-dimensional resonance as a human being.
Yeah, completely. And I think that even in the watching of that scene, I don't think that it's not a political argument. You know, it is at that point there are these young men that you've spent the last 2 hours getting to know, and you care for them deeply, and you understand exactly where each of them is coming from. So it's presented as the entire play is as an entirely universal human story.
Now, I have to say, everybody is great in the show. Paddy Considine has always been one of my favorite actors. He's
Mine too.
really incredible. The work that he did with like Shane Meadows and those movies a long time ago, I love those movies. But watching you in the show is something to behold. The energy that you have to put into the 3.5 hours. Everybody's working hard, but you, on the other hand, are up. You're dancing, you're cleaning, you're running, you're scared, you're crying, you're yelling, you're laughing. The gamut of emotion and physical energy that you exert is very, very big.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Tired. No, it's an incredible role to play, and you know, I don't go out on the stage each night thinking about the extent of what I have to achieve by the end. It's just moment to moment. It's like, what do I have to do next? And that speaks to how good the play is, in that it carries me with it. I don't have to kind of build up all of this stuff to bring with me on the stage. I just need to go out and begin it. And the play just rolls downhill after that so fast. And yeah, by the end, I kind of always can't believe what just happened, really. It's just,
you're in the zone.
Yeah, and you know, it's an incredible experience. I've never played any role like it, and yeah, I would give up anything to get to play a character like this for the rest of my life.
You would do this part for the
Not
rest of your...
specifically,
Yeah,
no.
okay, yeah.
Wow.
Need a break.
No, no, a character of this quality and you know, to have work like this, I would, you know, it's the greatest thing that I could ask for in my career.
Yeah, when I went and saw, the second time that I saw the show, the first time I went and saw it alone, the second time I went with a friend, and she, after the first act or maybe after the second act, turned to me and went, "She's unbelievable. I can't believe she can do this."
Oh, thank you.
And it's absolutely true. I'm not trying to blow smoke. It really is this thing where you're watching an endurance test for you at a certain point. Is there still a scene that trips you up, or still a scene that is still kind of hard for you to wrap your head around?
No, it's really, really easy to play because it is, you know, a mixture of the writing being so wonderful and everybody that I'm on stage with being so wonderful. I mean, we have the most incredible cast, and the majority of them I have been on this journey with for the last 2 years. So we are really like family, and so to go out and just get to play every evening and keep everything very fresh and spontaneous, and I just need to look in their eyes and listen, and I'm getting exactly what I need back. And so no, it's just not difficult. It's just exactly what acting should be.
Set up and go.
Yeah.
The final moment of the play is tragic and incredible and thrilling. It's like one of the great moments in theater, I think, in a long time. Everybody who's seen it can't get over it, and the whole audience gasps when it happens. I don't want to give it away, but I am curious. Have you guys ever messed that up? Because there's a certain amount of choreography that goes into it, where if there's a slight mistake, you're going to lose the audience going.
Incredibly, actually, no. I think the only things that have gone wrong have been technical, where certain effects that I don't want to spoil haven't worked at all, and it still made no difference, which is really amazing, because I would have thought that without those certain technical effects, that the entire believability of that would go. But I think the audience are so in there at that point that it really doesn't matter, because they're so invested in the people on stage, in those characters, that we've carried them so far, and they want to go with it.
I was fascinated when I saw it both times. I was like, "Whoa, what would happen if there's a slight mistake here?"
Exactly, yeah.
Which obviously, theater lends itself to.
Yes, absolutely.
Going back to the beginning, working with Sam Mendes, getting it on its feet. Once you guys get it on its feet and start or in the rehearsal room and doing it, what was the process like from there? How was he directing you? Was that just at that point figuring out the blocking?
He figured out the blocking very early.
Is Jez there with you guys?
Yes, absolutely. He was there, well, in fact, I think most of the time he was home just kind of furiously rewriting because he would come in and see it and he would decide what he thought wasn't working with dialogue and he would go home and fix that. But
It's so inspiring because I think I said this backstage. It's hard to imagine the show not being fully formed upon like first breath.
yeah.
Even though it clearly has all of the layers that go into years of work.
Yeah, that's the thing. It has to be developed, and even in previews at the Royal Court in London, our very first shows, Jez was still doing a good amount of rewriting. I think we didn't have the complete show until maybe third or fourth preview, and that's so exciting because that's what theatre's about. You know, it is about figuring out, especially what a play needs when the audience comes in, because the audience is like the extra character in the end, and you can't really know what a piece is until they are in. And we all had complete faith in the play from our point of view. Like we, as a cast, all knew from first read through that we were absolutely in love with this play, but you can never quite tell how it's going to go down. So when we finished our first preview and suddenly the audience all just rose to their feet in an instant, it was so surprising. Even though we had such faith in it, we were just shocked because we just didn't know if that was going to translate.
What kind of stuff was he changing leading up to it and during the previews? Is it minor tweaks, like joke beats here and there, or like emotional beats, but like everything else
Emotional.
in terms of the arc is
Yeah,
intact?
yeah, emotional beats primarily. I think that, I think sometimes in the course of really trying to dig into a new play in rehearsals, you can take a few wrong turns in the discussion of character between the cast and the director, and it can almost sometimes have a little bit of a domino effect where
Yeah,
you
I saw a quote recently where a playwright said there's a million ways to do it wrong and only one way to do it right, and sometimes you have to
Exactly.
go through the million to get to the one.
Exactly, and often if we
Terrifying.
therefore if we didn't have the writer in the room, then we would go off in those million ways, and we would kind of we would create something that wasn't in the essence of the play, and then he would come back in and say, no, that's not at all what I meant that to be, and would rewrite so that we could all understand it better, I suppose. So, and to make everything a little clearer, I've heard Jez talk about it in such a way that it's like just like a prism. You just got to turn it so that it catches the light in the exact right way, and then suddenly you have that rainbow. But it's such a minor tweak. Suddenly it's so much more understandable from everybody's point of view, including the audiences.
Well, that's a great way to put it. Paddy Considine, this is his first time doing theater, right?
Yep.
Primarily a film and television actor.
Yes.
Really film. I don't know how much television.
He has done some television in the UK, but he has been primarily film.
Yeah. So was there any trepidation on your part going into it? Did you know him, or was he nervous?
Yeah, I think he was. I didn't know him at all. We had actually met years ago in an audition situation, but and I'd always wanted to work with him ever since. I had just been straight out of drama school at that point, and I was dying to work with him. He's absolutely been one of my favorite actors. So
He's not as well known in the United States as
no,
I
it's
really.
really strange. He's an
so weird.
incredible actor.
He's like the British De Niro.
He really is.
And for some reason, it just hasn't carried over here yet. And it drives me crazy because I've loved his work for like 15 years now.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, Paddy Considine's in the show on Broadway. And people are like, who's that? And I'm like,
Yeah. But he hasn't done the big commercial work, and he's never chased the big star status. He's just always done the stuff that artistically for him is worthwhile, and so that has shaped his career. But yeah, if anybody doesn't know his work, you really have to go find the entire box set of Paddy Considine.
yeah, Dead Man's Shoes.
Dead Man's Shoes.
Room for Romeo Brass, which is
Yeah.
amazing. And then the movie he directed with Olivia Colman, Tyrannosaur.
yes.
It's maybe
And
her.
his recent one, Journeyman, as well.
Ooh, haven't seen that one.
Yeah, amazing. I'll
get into that.
Yeah.
So you have this audition with him. You're not nervous at all, but you guys go to the readings, and what is it like right away? What kind? Because the play is primarily, I mean, there's a lot. It's a huge cast, but the heart of it is a two-hander between the two of you.
Yes, yeah. It was so interesting because I was so excited about working with him, and then to be in a room where I realized this was actually my world rather than his world, and that I knew what I was doing and that he didn't at all. So he was nervous, and I think that the courage that it took to even just stick with us for those 8 weeks while this strange thing developed in a form that he knew absolutely nothing about. I mean, I remember we got on our feet for the first time, and he didn't realize he kind of just had to ever so slightly play towards out there instead of, you know, in film you can turn any which way you want because the camera will find you.
You can be interior about it. You can hold everything in.
No, I mean literally physically. Didn't realize that standing with your back to the audience talking isn't something that you can really get away with for 3.5 hours. And it was just, that's what suddenly made me realize. I was like, wow, you have never been on a stage before. And so to see it through with us and have faith in all of us and to have faith in Sam and to just trust that this very strange process was going to eventually yield something worthwhile. It just took such bravery on his part.
Do you know where the idea to cast him came from?
I think it came from Sam.
Yeah.
I think...
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed... In fact, I remember very early on in the process of the first read-throughs of it, I remember... I think even saying to Jez that he would feel like ideal casting because, yeah, he just seemed to be Caitlin Carney in, you know, in all of those films that he has been in.
Strong male presence.
Absolutely, but earthy and with a darkness behind him, some kind, you know, a depth and a natural sadness of the soul that I think that he brings. And I know that he certainly has said that when he read this play, and he had turned down plays in years previous because he had quite liked the idea of doing theatre, but nothing had ever spoken to him in the same way. And then he read this and he said he just knew this character. He knew he had to do this.
You also don't turn down Jez Butterworth and Sam Mendes.
No, I think you'd be awfully stupid to do
Yeah.
that.
And this play, if you read it, because it's
Yeah.
so brilliant from back to front.
Yeah, absolutely. Things like this do not come along often.
When did you decide to be an actress?
I think when I was about 5.
Were you like a performer, a natural performer?
I guess, but I never did anything professional before I had been to drama school. I just did amateur stuff, and I had done performances more actually to do with dance rather than drama whenever I was a child. But I just enjoyed being in the theatre so much, and I just knew, you know, when I did get to be in performances outside of school, then that meant leaving school early, which was, of course, in itself just a massive bonus. And then going to the theatre and being backstage and getting costume and makeup on, and you know, and at that point it was that was in the days when you would actually wear grease paint, and it was very kind of old school theatre, and it just, the entire atmosphere just spoke to me so loud and clear. I just knew that that's where I wanted to live. Everything else outside of that seemed really dull and boring.
Yeah. Getting the chance to pretend and be something else.
Yeah. So I knew straight away.
When did you decide that you liked theater primarily the most? Because theater acting is such a different beast than acting on film or television. Oftentimes film and television, show up, get it done. Most of your homework is done alone. Theater, your homework is oftentimes primarily done with the other actors and the director and the writer.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, I think. I mean, I do love doing TV and theatre, TV and film. And I kind of like changing it all about once I've finished a theatre job, particularly one that has gone on as long as this, then I'm, you know, usually dying to get in front of a camera again. But the camaraderie of theatre is a huge part to do with that. I mean, actors are among my favourite people in the whole world. I love actors. I love their company. And so to get
Have you ever thought about directing?
No.
But you love actors. Like, that's like kind of...
Yeah, I do, but I wouldn't. I don't think I'd be any good at it. Basically, I understand from the inner world outward. I don't know how I would go about trying to do what Sam Mendes does. He's unique, and I think that anything other than acting I haven't really given much thought to. I've just always known that I am at base I am an actor, and that's what I enjoy. And I just love, you know, like you say, that rehearsal room, that getting to spend so much time really delving into a character, delving into a play as a whole piece. Because obviously with TV, you're dealing with small chunks, and it feels less about telling an overall story. And I just love the feeling of telling a complete story. And then, of course, the aspect of the audience, the live audience, is huge in that, because there is just so much more. There's so much more of communal feeling there. I feel like in theatre, it's a version of church. It's a place where you come to meditate on and to worship, I guess, what humanity is, what the human experience is. And so the audience being there and being part of that is essential.
It's why, more so than any other sort of theater going experience, be it movies or watching something in public, in the theater, if somebody is on their goddamn phone around me, I freak out. I'm always very close to standing up and screaming, but then I'm like, that's worse than the person on their phone. I got to keep it in check here. But
I feel like that on the stage.
Really?
Yeah,
do you ever
absolutely.
notice it?
No, we primarily notice the ringing, obviously, and these days you do get.
What are you thinking if you're not at least turning your ringer off?
I know, and you've spent so much money to come and sit in that theater. You've taken time.
People on stage have spent so much time putting this together for you in this moment.
Absolutely.
What more do you want from the world?
Exactly. And you're not going to see it again. Even if you went back to the same theater tomorrow, you're not going to see that again. You're not going to see the same experience. It'll be a different thing tomorrow night than it was tonight. That is your one chance in this one moment to see this and just be alive to it.
If you go to the theater and you don't shut off your phone, you are a monster. You're a monster person. Just trash. Sorry. All right, who's got an audience question? Right here.
Hello.
Hi there.
I saw the play and I thought it was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And what really struck me was just kind of the naturalness of the whole cast together. I mean, even, you have a baby on the stage that was really, definitely well behaved when we were there, but everybody was at ease. Was that a really natural thing for the cast to come together, or is that something that, you kind of had to work at to bring everybody at ease?
It was very natural, and I think that part of it was to do with the fact that we're all where we're from. We're all from the north of Ireland, and it's not very often that you get to be part of a huge cast like that, either in theatre or in TV, where everybody is from the same place, and so there was a natural camaraderie there.
Was everybody having a good time in New York?
Oh yeah. Sometimes a little too much of a good time, but it's really exciting to be here, and I just think that the whole feeling that we had from day one of being part of something very, very special, I think made everybody just kind of gel together very quickly.
What about that baby? Both times I saw it incredibly well behaved, and I was shocked. Does it ever put up a fight?
Every so often, but I would say like so rarely. It's a lot to do with Carla, who plays Sheena. She has been like when we began rehearsals first in London, she had barely ever even held a baby. And actually, my eldest baby at that point was about 5 months old, and I brought her in just so that Carla could have some experience of being around babies. And then
here, practice with this.
Yeah, totally. It was literally that. And then over the course of these 2 years, she has become an absolute expert. It's amazing. She knows, how to just switch any moment in the slightest way that she needs to, just to make sure that the baby's okay. And she's amazing with them. So she keeps them very, very calm. She has it down to a fine art.
I'm really looking forward to in like 15 years when she's famous and her parent, the baby's parents, can go, you were held by that woman for about 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question.
Hi. I was wondering, working with Sam Mendes and Jez Butterworth, who are both pretty well-known filmmakers as well as, working in theater, do you notice a difference working on a play that's been written by a screenwriter or working on a play that is directed by someone who also works in film? Is there a difference between that and people who write and direct solely for theater?
In terms of the writing, I don't think so, because I think that they are two very different things that I don't feel anyway in the reading of the play that there was anything that bled in there. But in terms of the directing, yes, I think so, because I think that this was such a huge feat. The scale of this play and the depth of it and the layers that exist in it, that that really to have somebody who directed a Bond film and isn't intimidated by that means that we had somebody who knew exactly what they were doing and had full confidence in their abilities going in. Because I can't imagine how intimidating a situation like that must be for the average director, but Sam Mendes, thankfully, is not the average director.
Right. Like, wait, all the kids are on stage in this scene? Oh my
Yeah,
God. I have no
exactly.
idea. Where do we put them?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's, directed like a scene in Mexico with 50,000 extras just, a year before that. So there's nothing.
One more.
Hi. Thanks for being here. I'm wondering what we can expect next from you in the future, and if you have any roles that you still haven't played that you'd like to play, what would those be? Or what would that be?
I think next for me will be some TV and film, because I think that I've done this for so long now, and it's been such a huge part of my life and such an incredible experience that it'll be a little bit of time to get this one out of my system and to feel like I want to move on to the next play. But in terms of roles that I haven't played yet, I have to say that I very rarely think like that. I mean, I love new writing, actually, and so I am always very excited to read what the next thing is that somebody has never done before. I love being able to explore a character that is partly my creation and that nobody has ever experienced. And so really for me, just whatever Jez Butterworth writes next would be my ideal next role.
Only Jez. That's the
Yeah,
only-
pretty much only Jez. No, I do. There are other writers that I absolutely adore. I'm a big fan of Conor McPherson's work, actually. He has Girl from the North Country on here at the moment, and he's amazing. And there are several other writers that I do adore, but
Why do the Irish produce such wonderful playwrights? Is it still a great tradition in Ireland to be a playwright?
Absolutely.
Versus here, it just means you're broke.
It still means you're broke, but I think that there is absolutely still a great tradition of it, and I think that it's to do with a difficult and violent history in the country is definitely not a small part of it. I think it's something to do with there are many Irish people who have the souls of artists, but that have an upbringing and a history of difficulty and of a kind of there's a tradition in Ireland of not speaking out about things, of not saying things, of not expressing things, and so I think that somehow that works its way out through the art instead, and
But still a kind of linguistic tradition as well in Ireland. I mean, having Joyce as like the most famous writer means that you sort of have a kind of country, or the arts built around exploring language in a way that I don't think, like America, for instance, really has that. As much as we have Faulkner, the majority of artists here don't explore Faulkner that much.
Yeah. I think there's a love for language in Ireland that has always existed, and I don't know if that's maybe a mixture of the fact that we had a different language that then had English come in on top of it. So there's been a lot of blending and melding of languages there that has then resulted in a natural poetry to it, I think, and that mixed with cadence and accent and everything else that does kind of lend itself very well to dramatic writing.
We just got English and made it worse here. That's all that we did. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on the show. It's an incredible show. It is running through March, right?
The play is actually running through July.
Through July.
Yeah.
Incredible. If you have not seen The Ferryman yet, it's a must-see. It's a cultural moment on Broadway. You have to see it. It's absolutely incredible. Please give Laura a big round of applause. Let's hear it.
Thank you very much.